We all learned about political socialization in class this year, but what really is political socialization? To quote our government textbook, it is the process through which individuals acquire their political beliefs and values. We learned that our family, peers, race, age, gender, where we live, events, and other things ultimately affect how we view the world and our political opinions. But just talking about it in class doesn't give us a clear idea about what political socialization really is. So we decided to find a way to see it in action. We went and interviewed our teachers, peers, and even our younger siblings to see how they unknowingly have been politically socialized. Family is the #1 influence on the way we think, especially when it comes to the news and politics. We found that most students share the same beliefs as their parents.
My parents are Democrats, and we share the same opinions.
Yes, we agree politically.
My mom is a Democrat and my dad is a Republican, so that's kind of hard. So I think I have very different views on, for example, economic things. I'm more of a Republican, whereas social things, I'm more of a Democrat.
My parents are both Democrats, and I share similar opinions.
They're Republican, and I do share the same views.
I'm pretty sure they're Republican, and I share the same opinions on economy, but not as much social issues.
Republican. Yeah.
Republicans. Yeah.
Republicans. Yes.
You sway either way. Depends.
Yes, quite a bit.
I would say my family has. I'm not that sure about my friends. I don't think so.
I think that from being at home with my mom so much, probably yes. Aside from that, I don't really listen to people when they really say, oh, I like him.
I feel like they have, not my friends as much, but I think my family has strongly influenced me.
Where do you hear about stuff that happens in the world? Who tells you about it?
My mom and dad.
Not so much my friends, but definitely my family and my parents.
I think my family has some, but not a ton. I think most of my views kind of more have come from analyzing things in school.
Research shows that the more you discuss politics with your family, the more politically knowledgeable and active you become. Which is interesting considering our teachers' responses to the following questions.
I think it depends on the grade level, and specifically on the student, because in my classes, some kids are more political than other classes, especially when you see in history classes specifically with certain issues. But I think as you get older, specifically when you get to college, you'll see it more often when you get into class discussions. So, yeah, I think it does answer.
Depends. I don't really think students here have that strong political opinions, but in the few students that I've noticed that had those political views, yes, it definitely influences their behavior, their choices.
I don't think I really know. I teach math and we don't really have many political conversations, or I don't see that aspect of our students very often. But I do think that just from speaking to students here, they seem to be more politically informed than other schools that I've been in.
Yes, I find that my students are extremely opinionated politically, and they often cannot even define what their opinion is about.
I don't think too politically active. I've been to other high schools where there's a lot of it. Like when I worked at Livingston High School, there are different groups and different clubs set up based around politics and ethnic groups and everything like that, which I don't really see here. So I don't know. Then again, I don't know if I've been here long enough to really experience it.
For what I see and what I'm used to, I'm gonna say nothing, zero. I guess because of what I'm used to. When I went to high school in Italy, that's what our high school was based on.
I don't know so much about active. I think informed maybe would be a better way.
Politically active in opinions, definitely. Politically active in content knowledge, a little limited.
You would think that their responses would be different, considering our responses, and the fact that we feel our parents have influenced us so much when it comes to politics, right? That was not the only discrepancy we found between what research says and what we heard in our interviews. As we saw before, It seems that even though peers are supposedly another one of our biggest influences when it comes to political views, we don't feel as though this is true. With our teachers, though, we saw something different.
Well, when I was in Italy, especially all throughout my high school years, I was very, very, very involved in politics. I mean, there were days I cut school, I didn't go to school to go to protests with the Communist Party. Yes, in high school I openly defined myself as a communist. And I had no problem with that. I was lefty, I dressed as a communist, I believed that Marx was the biggest hero ever, and I wore the red banana around my neck. That was my life. Then that definitely, this was all the way up until I moved here. Because then I moved here right after high school. I literally graduated in July and moved here in October, and I realized I cannot define myself as a communist here in the States, which already making the choice of coming here and being very happy about it, I realized that I really then wasn't that communist that I thought, and then I realized really what that word meant, even, studying even here more in college, and of course here, the teaching was also very against that. So I definitely changed my mind, but I'm still, I think very, like I said, definitely, on the Democrat side, very liberal, so I guess that still stayed in me. Yes, again, in high school, right. Yes, I was very, very involved. I even helped, I helped some, in Italy there's so many different parties that I don't remember, and they change every year, so I don't even remember exactly what the name of the political party was that I was really following and helping, but I helped some of their representatives campaign, and I went to the protests, so my peers definitely, my family actually, my father was completely outside. When I was in high school, we had lots of arguments. That's why I had to cut school to go to the protests. But you guys are at an age where you really should be doing a lot of critical thinking. And critical thinking involves obviously also, to me, critical thinking is really what's going to help you form into an adult and a person that has a brain, that has an opinion. My father did not agree with any of my political views. The biggest influence was my boyfriend at the time. It's a boyfriend, you want to do whatever he does. So that's how I started, and I was like, okay, yeah, I like this, I believe in this too. Yeah, so definitely my peers.
I was very, very powerfully influenced in high school by a superb teacher and by very active friends, one of whom is a federal district judge right now, and one of whom, another best friend, ran for the U.S. Senate. So I was very influenced, my parents were highly informed, very influenced by them, and then I was very influenced by my work in New York when I was a young woman, also by my husband, who was very informed. I believe I've been politically socialized non-stop. Yes.
I think growing up, my family has led me to a more conservative background. However, from teaching and interacting and being in different school environments and everything, I think I've become more moderate, more, moving towards the more liberal side, just because the interactions with, different groups, different kids, different areas I've worked in and everything. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see where I go from there and how it changes.
Become more informed, more interested. I think I've seen a lot more and know a lot more, but I don't know if it's changed. I feel like I have the same core values that I've had. Little things that, in my opinion, have changed. I think I've come from a pretty open-minded family where they have political arguments, but we have every spectrum on there. And same thing in school. I went to a big school, so it wasn't centralized to one political view or another.
It seems that most teachers can remember times when their friends did socialize them politically. It also seems that because they have experienced more, their political views have been shaped by various people. But what about the media?
I pretty much watch the news every day. I get my political news from Reddit, The Daily Show, The Colbert Report, and sometimes MSNBC.
I watch the news, I'd say, pretty much every morning before I go to school. And I guess usually it's Channel 7, NBC News.
I watch the news pretty much every morning for probably 15 minutes, and at dinner for half an hour, but I get most of my news aside from that just from the internet. New York Times, a lot. Huffington Post, even though it's more of an opinion site, I get a lot of my stuff from there too.
I watch the news every night with my parents, and I listen to NPR on the way to school in the morning.
I probably watch the news weekly, and I get most of my news online. I like CNN for news and Reddit as well.
Once a week, if you consider Saturday Night Live a news source, that's where I get most of my news from. And occasionally 60 Minutes or online, that's my main source.
Yeah. How often?
A lot.
Fox News. Sometimes.
Do you use social media at all?
Yes.
Is that where you get mainly your news from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once a month, once a week.
In class, we learned all about the media, including horse race journalism, agenda setting, and other journalistic techniques that can influence us every day. We tend to consider the media to be a huge factor of political socialization and having the ability to influence our beliefs. But do they really?
They don't.
We interviewed Craig Wilson, a producer and writer for CBS News, to see his take on the media and political socialization.
Well, I'm a television news producer for CBS News. I write it, I've shot it, I've written it, I've produced it, I've done it all for CBS News for 18 years. That's my job, is to not only present differing perspectives with balance, if there's a debate about something, but generally the camera finds the most outrageous, loudest voice to record because it's interesting. That's not necessarily the view of all the people. So, my job is to balance, not only the voices and the screaming that I can find, but also to put them in perspective. Very little, actually. I think the media gets blamed for affecting people's point of view. It is none of that. People's points of view are already shaped. They either like what they're hearing or they don't, and they blame the media for the message if they don't, or they embrace it if they do. The truth of the matter is, they already come to the table with their mind made up. I don't have any tolerance for people who are ignorant about certain issues that blame the media. I find that to be ridiculous. There are certain media organizations that pass themselves off as being objective. I work for a network. I work for CBS News. I tell the news straight and square. There are networks that definitely talk more about the news. I report the news. They talk about the news. When you talk about the news a lot, you get imbalance, you get bias. No, I don't think the media has any power at all. People give it power. People assign it responsibility, and therefore that creates power. If we have influence rather than power, it's something we have to yield very carefully, because the whole point again is about being objective, being honest, not about having an opinion or perspective. Well, I don't think media affects them directly. I think they affect them indirectly, because obviously we report the news, we follow the candidates, all parties, but ultimately it's up to the people watching that affect elections. Media doesn't vote.
It seems that rather than influencing us, the media merely reinforces what we already believe and agree with. Natalie Stroud, an assistant professor at the University of Texas at Austin, said essentially people discover what media sources are their friends and turn there for their news, and what sources are their enemies and avoid those sources. In conclusion, political socialization is a lot more complicated and intricate than we may think, and affects us all differently. It allows each and every one of us to have completely different views and opinions on a variety of topics because of the different sources and people who are able to influence us. It's one of the many things that makes America, America.
Yes, I like this country a lot.
I do like being an American.
Of course. America, all the way.
I love my country.
America.